Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys. Celtic Warband here, and thanks for tuning in to another battle in Napoleonic Total War 3. In today's battle, we have three members of the coalition, Great Britain, Austria, and Prussia, who have cornered an inferior French army inside a small town. So the French have to try and defend the town from the overwhelming numbers of the coalition. Will they be able to hold on? I hope you guys do enjoy, and without further ado, let's get to the battle. Alright guys, welcome to the battlefield, and the battle does officially begin with a couple volleys from the 6-pounder horse artillery of Great Britain. You can see that they pushed them up very close to the town and are beginning to shell some of the French positions here. Now the two French players, or the two French defenders, I believe on this side was Tattoos and Welding, and then way over here defending this town, which is kind of cool. It's got a little bridge here and it's separated by water on three sides. The army over here, the French army, being commanded by Napoleon. Now, for the three attacking forces, we do have some of the Great Britain forces over in the trees here, but most of the line infantry is coming up in very slow column formation. But the Red Celt is in control of Great Britain, naturally. And then we do have the Prussian forces moving forwards here in the center, commanded by Joe on it. And then very slowly but surely and way on the flank, I'm bringing my Austrian forces to bear as well. But we do have some movement in the forest over here, so I did want to start the battle with the Great British cannon, because as you can see, we do have some of the French cuirassiers, or the cuirassiers. It looks like some Royal Cavalry. They are charging out from the tree line and are hoping to eliminate this 6-pounder horse artillery, which makes perfect sense because I believe that Tattoos and Welding did have some issues with his artillery, and his artillery wasn't firing, it was bugged out. So the fact that the French cavalry can neutralize this cannon so early on is a huge, huge deal. However, they are taking point-blank fire, the French cavalry. They're moving very slow, and you can see we've also got some of the British cavalry here about to get a really nice counter charge. And oh my goodness, the cannon fire does not stop as well, so we may have some friendly fire here. But we've got the French cavalry and the British cavalry fighting very fiercely out in the fields. And it looks like the English cavalry is going to be successful in driving the French cavalry away, so that is excellent to see. I believe that that was mostly due to the cannons as well, helping to shatter the morale. So yeah, both of those units are retreating. I think that is 2 units, if I'm not mistaken. Or it might have just been 1 unit. Yeah, 46 over 106. So 1 unit of cavalry has been routed. We do have the 2 cavalry units here, I believe. Or did he only commit 1? Oh, he only committed 1. Well done. So the 6 dragoons there, heavily outnumbered as well, because that cavalry was at 106 versus the 66 of the United Kingdom cavalry, but he held his 23rd Light Dragoons in reserve as well. So quickly, very quickly, looking over the army comps, the Great British Army is very, very small. I believe they only deployed about 1,000 men, but most of it is this very elite line infantry here. And we've got the general. Obviously, you did see the horse artillery and the cavalry. I believe we also have some of the Yorkshire boys up here as well. Red Celt hailing from Yorkshire, so of course he would bring them to the battlefield. And looking at the Prussians, they're much more numerous. They brought a lot of line infantry as well. You can see them pushing up the roads here. The roads in column formation do allow them to move much more quickly. He does have some of his Dragon or Kraft cavalry here, but I believe those are like heavy cavalry, heavy melee cavalry. Most of his units are moving through the trees here at a snail's pace, and he does have one of the 6-pounder horse artilleries as well. And then way over on the flank, slowly but surely, my Austrians are going to make it to the battlefield. We've got a lot of line infantry here. I believe about 50% of this is line infantry, and then I've got about 30% irregulars, and about, I'd say, yeah, 20% being militia. And then I do have some cavalry up here as well. You can see I brought some hussars. So good, I believe these were like light cavalry, if I'm not mistaken. So I've got 2 units of them with the horse artillery here and the general. And that pretty much sums it up. So there is a pretty decent bombardment phase over here with the United Kingdom starting to engage on this left-hand flank, but a lot of the battle doesn't start for quite some time. So I am going to cut it here, guys, and we'll bring it back to you once the battle officially begins. Alright guys, welcome back to the battlefield, and the Austrian cavalry has finally crossed the bridge and is now in striking distance of the French on this flank, and you can see some of the French infantry units here, but what I did not see was the French artillery hidden in the trees until the very last second, and you can see that they are going to open fire on my Austrian cavalry, and my general was well within range, so you can see that he is kicking up dust and getting out of there, along with my 6-pounder horse artillery, or it's probably a 5-pounder, I believe, and my cavalry. I'm trying to hide them behind this hilltop, but a very sneaky thing to do from Noob Nath here, who is controlling this flank of the French. And yes, still firing after my general as well. Most of the cavalry is hidden behind the trees though, which is excellent. And we do have the Austrians slowly making it to the battlefield. You can see there's a long line of Austrian infantry that still needs to make it across the bridge and be ready to fight the French after this long, grueling march. But the battle is very much underway already over here. You can see that Great Britain has undertaken the task of going against the French, even though he is outnumbered. And that is bizarre to say for an attacker to actually go up against the defender when the defender actually has more men. But it just came down to bad coordination, I think, on the coalition's part. Great Britain really was keen to get in here very quickly. But unfortunately, the Prussians weren't really ready for the battle just yet. You can see if we look over to their side, they are just forming up in the center here. But we also have some of the French. Now that he sees that the Prussians aren't ready to engage just yet, Tattoos and Welding is moving some of his light infantry units over here, and he's going to get an excellent flanking position on the forces from the United Kingdom. Now, Redkelt does see that, and he is positioning or repositioning his units to be able to accommodate that, but he's just under pressure from all sides. He did bring a very small force as well, small but elite. But sometimes in Napoleon Total War, I think this was his first battle ever in Napoleonic Total War 3 as well, sometimes you just need more guns. I find that having very large militia units is a very good strategy, especially if you're a newer player. And you can see that Tattoos and Welding, he's not a new player. He's quite good at Napoleonic Total War 3, but he's brought some units with very massive numbers. You can see 129 here, 149 in this unit, 149 in that unit. So he's definitely got a lot of reserves to be able to filter to the front lines if he needs it. However, you can see that the British do not have such a luxury. If we zoom in here, you can see just how depleted their ranks are. And there are holes in their ranks. There is not enough men to be able to fill the gaps there. But let's go ahead and see what the Prussians are doing. The Prussians are slowly moving forwards here, and they will be in a position to help the United Kingdom shortly. But we do have some of my Austrian cavalry coming over here. Now, I see this is an excellent position, or an excellent opportunity to take out the French artillery, because Noob Nath has left a hole in his lines purposely so that he wouldn't fire into the backs of his own men and cause friendly fire. But that is also a perfect opportunity for me to charge into this cannon and rid the French of any artillery on this flank. So looks like I barely got into that artillery crew before being hit with possibly canister shot, and that canister shot would have definitely routed my light dragoons, or my light cavalry. I don't know if they're actually dragoons, they're probably hussars, but we do have some reserve units here, so the grenadiers of the line here being held back in reserve. I am quickly charging some of my cavalry into them though to stop them from firing, and my second unit of cavalry is turning this way and is hitting the backs of the French lines that are facing the Prussians. So pandemonium behind French lines here, and I'm sure Napoleon is quickly barking orders to his units to prevent this from getting out of control. And that is one of my French cavalry units running. Unfortunately, it is not... It's not the best cavalry. I brought cheap cavalry, but we did manage to neutralize that artillery piece. Now, if we go over here to the Prussian side, we've actually got some Prussian cavalry moving up. The infantry was doing okay, but the Prussian cavalry should be able to annihilate this flank, and Great Britain desperately needs that. You can see that a lot of his units are starting to break under the pressure from the French, but here we go. Got a charge into the flanks of these light French infantry. Yes, well done. Well done. So Joe on it, good battlefield awareness there, and driving the French back across the river, and now it's forcing Tattoos and Welding to reposition his flank. But Joe is just going to go right into the river and charge into the French infantry here, and that was actually a pretty solid charge considering it was across the river. However, I did see a massive hit there, so it looks like some French artillery did find their mark on the Prussian reserves. But this unit looks like it is going to be able to escape death at the hands of the Prussian cavalry. Now, we do have one of these units of artillery. You can see that it's kind of bugged out. Tattoos and Welding unfortunately had some issues with this artillery piece. However, he does have another on the other flank, I believe, and it is in a very good position. You can see really hitting home against those units of Great Britain. Down to 73 men on that one, down to 40 men on this one. So yeah, the British are really struggling here. You can see Redkelt actually had a tactical retreat here, just kind of getting his men out of range so he can take a look at the battlefield and decide what to do next. But these guys are dropping very quickly. That is because the horse artillery here, the 6-pound horse artillery, was using canister shot. So the infantry is in such close range that canister shot is able to be used effectively, and they were just being wiped out. Over here on this flank, it looks like, again, Tattoos and Welding has a lot of men on this flank, which is good to see. Not so good to see if you're rooting for the coalition, though. The Great British flank is looking pretty light indeed. Let's go ahead and take a look at how the Prussians are doing. They're forming up in a massive long line, but they haven't actually engaged just yet. And my units are slowly starting to get into position as well. You can see all of my line infantry are in position, and I'm moving up my irregular infantry here. And we're actually got one of these units sallying out here. We've got a unit of Grenadiers of the line moving out to engage the Austrians. I'm quickly forming up my troops to take advantage of this. Possibly a misclick from Nugnath, but nonetheless, he will lose this unit. Let's zoom in here at the cost of all of my frames. And there we go. Volley after volley meeting their mark on this very expensive Grenadier infantry unit. And they are going to stop. I'm not sure if they're going to throw their grenades or not. Maybe not. But we need to quickly... Oh no, we actually got a charge here. So we've got the Grenadiers moving in. Oh, a couple of them actually falling to that volley before we have a melee here. And it looks like the French immediately break off that attack. And have they broken? Yeah, they have broken. So that is unfortunate for the French, losing a unit there. But my general is under attack, and that is right. It was a diversion all along. He had a unit of 1st Hussars in behind my lines, and he is going for my general. Look at Karl here, Karl von Osterreich. He needs to get out of here. I'm quickly moving him through a unit of my infantry and turning my Jaegers around to fire at them. But here he goes back into my artillery piece. So a little bit of justice for Noob Nath here, taking out my artillery piece when just 5 minutes before I did the exact same thing to him. So extremely frustrating, and I have no answer to this because I've already used my 2 cavalry units here. Look at what this has caused to happen on my lines. I am just in utter disarray here. I don't know which way to turn. I'm quickly trying to get my general out of here, but unfortunately my general is now almost in range of the French lines, so I quickly pull back, and thankfully the Hussars have broken under some volleys from my militia that were actually on the right flank there. And now it is time for the great Austrian army to move forwards. That was a close enough call. Karl von Osterreich escaping with only 9 men left in his unit. And I'm starting to move some of my irregulars over here as well. We do have the Prussians that are finally in range too. You can see that they are firing from across the river, and they actually have a pretty solid position, if I do say so myself. The French, though, are well entrenched across this river as well. And has this artillery piece kind of straightened up? Oh, it looks like it is going to fire. Whoa, just ripping across the river there. That's got to unnerve some of the Prussians. And how are we doing on this flank? Doing quite well. Yeah, he's got his light infantry over here, skirmishing down the French units. But at this point, Tattoos and Welding has pretty much routed Great Britain. You can see they have some scattered resistance with the 33rd, the Havercake lads, Duke of Wellington's, ready to fire on the ranks of French. The French have moved into column formation. I guess they thought that the battle was over here, but that is not the case. But look at all of the units here. We've got 5 over here. We've got 3 here. We've got like another 8 to 9 units over here, all moving towards the Prussian side. We've also limbered up the 6-pounder horse artillery, and it is just all going to be crashing into the flank of the Prussians. The British have been kind of routed, so I'm not going to focus too much more over here, because now it's these 2 theaters of war that we're going to be focusing on. So we do have some of the Prussian musketeers over here lending a hand as my Austrian line infantry get into position. Very long and pretty awesome looking line of line infantry, if I do say so myself. But the French, as I said, just have superior position. They're in the forest, so some of them are hidden. You can see I had to keep getting my Austrians to move forwards further and further just to get a shot on the French. But there we go, and now I'm starting to volley them. Yes, Austrian firepower finding their mark on the French lines, and I think this unit I'm going to push my militia units actually onto their flank, but it looks like the French do have some more units coming up in reserve. And how are the Prussians doing? They're still trying to cross the river, but the French are holding a staunch resistance here. Let's actually enjoy some of the actual firefighting. Well, not firefighting, but you guys know what I mean. Firefight, I should say. Enjoy the actual line battle. Very cool that the Prussians are on one side of the river and the French are on the other. Oh, and it looks like we actually have some volleys from the house as well, so I'm not sure if the French have any units in that house. I don't believe they do. Otherwise, I think it would... Oh, no, they do actually. Yeah, I'm seeing some shots from this window, but they're just not showing up at this point. So maybe they're too far off or they're classed as a hidden unit. But I want to keep an eye on this Prussian flank here. This is going to be an utter disaster here if Joe can't form up his units in time. And it looks like he has committed about 4 or 5 units over to this flank. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units. We've got some cavalry. And then we've got another 10 units over here. So we've got about 20 units bearing down onto the Prussians. So now the coalition attackers almost become defenders at this point. You can see that the French are actually fording across the river, and they're going to be pushing really hard on this one unit. This one unit obviously engaged against this light infantry unit from France, but now they're going to be absolutely annihilated once these 4 units start to open fire. These French they were escaped death at the hands of the Prussian cavalry. They were almost just run down by the Prussians, and I'm sure they are very thankful to have their lives back. But oh my goodness, this battle line over here, it's just disgusting. And did that rout them already? Yeah, they've broken. So that gives the French unimpeded access to this side of the river, and Tattoos and Welding is going to utilize that immediately. I want to take a look at my line battle, though, and see how things are doing. I think I'm doing pretty well. You can see that I'm causing some pretty heavy casualties to the French. Their battle lines are looking quite thin. So where there's heavy losses on the British side and soon to be heavy losses on the Prussian side, we are delivering some heavy losses to the French on this flank. However, we do see some more cavalry coming in. We've got some dragoons here, a unit of 70, well, 68. They've lost 2 men already, but this is kind of a danger because I don't have any cavalry to speak of on this flank. So that could spell disaster for me if that cav gets in behind enemy lines. And it looks like some of my units are starting to run. Let me see which ones those are. It's these guys, unfortunately, yes. So it looks like one of my militia units has broken. I believe they're just militia, though, so it's not a huge deal. I'm redeploying some of my regular units over to this flank because it looks like New Math has kind of pushed pretty heavily over here, and we also have the presence of those dragoons. Well, let's take a look at how the French are doing. Yeah, so the French have pushed across the river, and a lot of the musketeers over here are starting to rout, and this battle line is in trouble. It is under fire from the flank, and Tattoos and Welding, he's suffering a little bit more on this side, but not that much more, I have to say. I've got to stop zooming the camera around and give you guys some good shots like this, but there's so much that's going on in this battle, and I don't want to miss even a little bit for you. Yes, well done, Prussians, well done. Bravely holding this flank, and it looks like the Prussians in the distance there are actually retreating from the river, and this unit is just tasked with holding back the French for as long as possible. But now we've got some units that are actually firing into the flanks there. The Prussian the Prussian artillery does have a really good position, though. And actually, you can see how the battle is progressing way over in the distance. Again, at the cost of my frames, I'm just going to zoom in so you guys can see in the distance the Austrians attacking the French on that flank. And what do we got over here? We've got some more dragoons coming in here. So the French cavalry pushing in against the Prussians. Oh no! And the musketeers, the 105 men remaining in the unit, have routed. Thankfully, the Austrians are here to volley that cavalry and rout them from the battlefield before they do too much more damage. That is an intense sight to behold. Such terror if you were a line infantry and you see those dragoons just pop out of the forest and come charging straight towards you. But now the Austrians are going to begin to move forwards. We have definitely caused enough damage that we can push our advantage here. And we've also kind of conquered one of these spots here. So I was trying to relieve the Prussians by pushing in and taking out this unit, or at least firing into their flanks. And that way it would give the Prussians a chance to cross the river. But I am unaware at this point that Great Britain has been routed from the battlefield, and I'm also unaware that Prussia is under heavy attack across the river from the French. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 units over here now. Now, this isn't good. This isn't very good for Tattoos and Welding. We've actually got like some point-blank fire here from between the French and the Prussians. This is a very close line battle. There we go, boys. Oh, and we've got the Prussians charging in here. Ooh, some pretty heavy hits, though. The French getting a couple shots off before the battle is engaged. And we've got some more musketeers. I think they're actually trying to cross the river. This is a disaster. I would not try to cross the river while the French have the high ground. Oh, yes. Or, oh no. I shouldn't be cheering for the opposite team. But yeah, they are so slow moving in the water. That's going to give the French so much time to volley these units. You can see the musketeers are already wavering, and they don't even make it across the river. Very surprising that this one did, though. However, another volley there, and I'm sure they will break very soon. Yep, immediately breaking. Wow. It looks like the French were driven off over here, though, so well done on Joe actually attacking them. And now it looks like they are going to challenge these units in melee, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. So French is trying to, Joe is trying to control this flank to the best of his abilities. This was also his first Napoleonic Total War III battle, and he's actually doing quite well considering that Tattoos and Welding is a veteran of this mod. First he beat Red Celt, it was his first battle in Napoleonic Total War III. Now he is taking on Joe on it. But I think it really all came down to just a lack of coordination on our part. We all attacked one at a time, and that allowed Tattoos and Welding to focus first the British, and then second the Prussians, and meanwhile Noobnath and I are having a good old classic 1v1. But I think I have the better end of the deal. Yes, there you go. So you can see there, unit routing. We've got another unit routing here. So 2 units routing. We've got a 3rd unit routing, Grenadiers. And now we are starting to push through the forest. The 4th one is routing. We've got a 5th one routing here. So we have just powered through his lines. And check out this awesome kind of L formation I've got going here. I've got all of my militia over here really hounding these flanks. And I believe that this artillery is bugged here. It has routed, so don't worry about that. But now I am starting to cross the river because my scouts have reported that Napoleon is over here. But Napoleon Bonaparte is going to go ahead and move over to the safety of Tattoos and Welding's side. But just a lot of French starting to route and just travel along this river as they try to escape the battlefield. But look at the carnage that was caused on both sides. My side as well. You can definitely see where the line battle was, and also where the French tried to defend in this forested area. We've got pretty heavy resistance. But now again, I'm trying to really lend a hand to the Prussians. They're trying to withdraw their forces, but now I realize that those are not Prussians at all, but that in fact these are the Prussians, and that the French have arrived. And I don't realize this, I think, until they start to cross the river. I thought that this was Joe, and that we were doing quite well, but then I realized that the Prussians have actually been driven behind my lines, and this is pretty much all that remains of their units here. And we've got about 6 to 8 units of French ready to cross the river and destroy my Austrian army. Come on, boys, another volley there. You will hold. Brave Austrian army. The last to arrive to the battle, but the last one to leave the battle. We will hold against these overwhelming numbers of French that are counter-charging towards us. I have a lot of my infantry units over here as well. You can see that Nubnath has formed up a secondary defense. He's got 2 units here. He's got a 3rd one in reserve. And he's got another 2 units over here too. So he's got a few lines, but I think that some of this is actually Tattoos and Welding's units. So he's actually recommitted some of his forces, but we are breaking through this second line as well. The power of the Austrians. Such a good shot here. Smoke on the battlefield. Of course my men are fatigued. This is war. And if you look over here too, we've also got the French that are pushing pretty hard on my flank, starting to fire at the Austrians. And the Prussians over here, the remnants of the Prussians, have formed up to try and help me stop these French from crossing the river, but that is just not going to happen. So I'm going to try and choke point this off with a couple of my units. However, I make a big mistake. I'm still, as I said in the last battle, quite newbie in Napoleonic Total War 3, and I've actually moved both of my units, I think, one behind the other, which is a really stupid idea because I think that the second unit isn't able to fire, if I'm not mistaken. Because they would be obstructed, would they not? But I think that this is a better option. Maybe not such thick columns, but spreading them out a bit more. But then again, Tattoos and Welding, as I said, knows how to play this game for sure. Much better than me. Oh, that is a good volley there. So yeah, maybe he knows what he's doing after all. There we go. And my Austrian line infantry are not doing that well. So yeah, you can see at this in the second line here, the second unit. Yeah, I might actually be getting some friendly fire. I'm not too sure, but not all the unit is firing. In fact, I wonder if I did get friendly fire there. I'm very, very curious. Let me know down in the comments below if that is a thing. But I'm still pushing here, maybe a little bit too aggressively on this flank. We've got some units that are shaken, possibly going to rout very shortly. Over on this flank too, I'm still pushing pretty hard on this second line, trying to break it before Tattoos and Welding's units get across the river. I've even pushed some of my infantry across the river here and are now engaging the French kind of from behind. Nubnath was aware of this though, and he did turn some of his units around to face them. And then again, these guys are only militia. They are not battle-hardened line infantry. And you can see that some of them are starting to get quite depleted. The French just outclassing and outgunning us on this side. But if we zoom out and take a look at the battlefield, look at all of the theaters of the battle here. First off, we had this theater, which was kind of short and sweet. Just not enough numbers in the United Kingdom side. Some losses for tattoos and welding, but really not much. Not much at all. I think he did pretty well. It looks actually, though... Ah, very good. Killed, I believe that was the Austrian... Or, sorry, I believe that was the tattoos and weldings general, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure. Karl von Osterreich is here, though, to try and rally his men. You can see that I am withdrawing my units to a more favorable position because I need to give this side of the crossing to the French. I'm losing so many men trying to hold this crossing. It's just better if I let them go. But we've got some more French on this flank that are just relentlessly firing into the sides of my line infantry. So it's definitely dire straits at this point. But as I was saying, yeah, the first theater of war was here, and then we had this second theater of war. Actually, it looks like some more French trying to make it to the battle. But some pretty moderate losses here for the Prussians, but a lot of morale-breaking losses. Many of his units kind of broke from the battlefield with high numbers and then returned. But for me, I'm holding to the best of my abilities, but I'm starting to take some pretty heavy losses now. I am trying to form up in the trees to give myself the best protection that I can against the guns of the French. But as I try to keep withdrawing, I'm just taking more and more casualties as the French fire into my backs. You can see a very intense firefight over here. My Austrians not giving up, holding to the last man. And actually, the French are not even volleying here. They're just continuing to move forwards. Come on, boys, hold. Look at this bizarre battle line that I've got going on here. Kind of funny, but as I said, I'm losing this flank. And here we go. We've actually got Napoleon Bonaparte himself pushing back my militia off this islet. There he is. He's right engaged in melee. Very, very cool. But the French need to push forwards and save Napoleon. It looks like this militia, these Jaegers, may actually hold on for a time. And yeah, there goes Napoleon. He needs to get out of there. And just like that, my Jaegers break when they realize that Napoleon is out of their grasp and the French are going to close in and protect him as well. And at that point, I kind of realize that it's now or never, and I push some units into the river crossing to try and hold on that flank. And I'm just going to pray that my battle line lasts. Oh, I love the gun sounds in Napoleonic Total War 3. Hold, brave Austrians, hold, and now we're being surrounded as well. Look at this here, 2 of my units have broken, and now the French are going to surround my Austrians in the trees here. I've got a unit that has wavered. Looks like they have come back, which is good. However, they're only militia, and Karl von Teschen, I believe, or Karl von Osterreich, my apologies. Yes, he is routing with 2 of his commander's bodyguard there, his general's bodyguard. So yeah, he is going to escape the battlefield and just leave his men to their fate. Zoom out and kind of take a look at how the French are positioning here. So you can see they've kind of got a half crescent moon here, or a crescent moon, half moon, and we've got some French actually pushing into melee over here. Very surprising against my Prussian militia, or sorry, my Austrian militia. But we're still getting point-blank volleys into the French here, and I can't imagine that they're going to last for much longer. 42 men versus 115. Although my men are shaken. And Allied general killed, Allied general killed. So the Red Celts general is finally killed there, and Joe's general following very closely after. And almost as if they knew, they are routing from the battlefield. Wow. And I think that my general is the only one that's still alive. Yeah, he's just going to rout from the battlefield like the coward that he is. As I said, leaving his brave men to hold in this impossible engagement against the French. Keep firing, boys. Keep firing. But now we've got the French in our rears here. You can see we've got the 69, the 36, another 69, the 100E. They are all on our flank. We've also got some more 100E. So I'm assuming that's like the 100th Regiment, the 27th Regiment. Got the 28th here. A couple of 28ths, the 33rd. But it's pretty much over at this point. The coalition has failed. And they will have to retreat and regroup. So, under overwhelming circumstances and overwhelming numbers, it looks like Napoleon was able to snatch a victory once again. And I believe that that is most of my units broken. I think I have one more unit that is holding, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe not. Maybe I don't. Maybe they've all broken. I don't think that there is any more fighting over here. Oh no, there is actually. We've got some Prussians who are dug in under this cliff face, facing some of the French line infantry here. So Joe Onnet fighting to the last man over here, even in the presence of his general, who has been killed. And they actually seem to be doing a decent amount of damage to this unit. It just depends on how many, if this was a fresh unit or not. However, these guys are down from 49 to 37 men, and they do actually take quite a long time to be able to fire again. Let's actually come over here and take a look at what's going on. Yep, a lot of Austrians routing from the battlefield. This one with 40 men remaining, 77 and 70. And the French are redeploying, I guess, over here to deal with the Prussian resistance. But here we go. One unit has returned from the battlefield. Oh, no, they broke again. Too many men breaking. So well done to Tattoos and Welding and Noob Nav for taking a victory here against overwhelming numbers. I think it was just due to... the first reason was that the English army was just way too small. It was less than, or I think just over 1,000 men. And it was also just uncoordinated. We were attacking one at a time, so it was virtually a 2v1 at one point, and then it was kind of like a 2v1 against the Prussians, and then it was a 1v1 over here, but the damage was already done on the other flank. Okay, yes, so one of my units did return here, with 73 men remaining. These ones are all still broken, looks like. How are we doing over here? Is it the Prussian? No, they have broken. Okay. So it looks like this is the only unit left on the battlefield, as far as I can tell. And we've got some of the French over here that have finally pushed my militia across to this side of the river. And now I'm just going to form up my men into a square formation. One last stand of the Austrians. And now the French are going to have to charge us. But as long as the Austrian flag still flies, there is hope. Could you imagine if I broke like like 17 units of French? But it was a very, very good last stand nonetheless. So brave. This guy here is like, yes, yes, I have the flag. We could hold against the French. Just steel yourselves, my boys. I don't know why he sounds British when he's supposed to be Austrian, but there we go. Huge charge into the Austrians. More of the French coming up the hill as well. Soon to be surrounded, the Austrians fight bravely. And there we go. They have broken from the battlefield. What a tough and chaotic fight that was. And here we go. Here is the final result. So you can see the deployed here, yeah, 1,093, so very, very small. Meanwhile, Tattoos and Welding, 3,141. So that means that on that flank, Red Celt was actually outnumbered 3-1, which was incredible. And then he did push over to kind of challenge Joe Onnet. 2,700, he did field the most out of all of us, but with Noob Nath having about, probably, I'd say 1,000 on his flank, with maybe 2,500 remaining from Tattoos coming across. That would have been 3,500 to 2,700. So they just had superior positioning. It must have been because they had Napoleon Bonaparte on the battlefield. But I believe this is the unit that held in the last stand, and I'm happy to see they got the most kills at 149. And my artillery getting 4 kills, yeah, being eliminated very early on by the French cavalry. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one.